Okay, I think we're ready to get started. Hi everyone. So I'm Holly Anthony. I am the Assistant Director at the Iowa Raptor Project. So at the Iowa Raptor Project, we serve to connect the community and students to birds of prey through education and research. So we're doing that education portion here, and we have 4 beautiful birds of prey for you guys that we're going to take out and have you guys have a closer look and educate about the bird, the species, how they hunt, just everything I know about them, really. So yeah, I'm gonna get out the first bird. Any questions about the Iowa Raptor? Has anyone visited the Iowa Raptor Project? Yeah, okay, pretty familiar with it. Awesome. So so I started working in July 2020. Is when I started my job there, and I got into working with birds of prey through a sport called falconry. And so I've been doing falconry for about 10 years. So that's how long I've been working with birds of prey, and I think they're the most amazing animals in the world. So, all right, I'll get the first. Okay. And I forgot, before I get the first bird out, I have a couple introductions to make. So I have Annika. She's a Kirkwood Community College student, and she's an intern with us through the summer, so she's learning everything Iowa Raptor Project and what we do. And then I have Addie. She is a Raptor Care volunteer, and she does Raptor Care every Monday, and she helps to feed all the raptors and care for them. So, awesome volunteer, yeah. Thank you. Okay. Who can guess what kind of bird this is? Any guesses? It's not an eagle, but yeah, it is a hawk. So this is Superior. She's a Harris's hawk. What I have on her head right now is called a hood. So we call this a hood. And then we have these boxes are called giant hoods. So that's a falconry term. Also, when you saw, I just pulled her out of her box, and I wrapped, this is called a leash. So how you keep a bird of prey on the glove is they have anklets, you can see kind of on her ankles, and then they have jesses. She's a young bird, so she's probably going to do a little baiting. She's going to fly off the glove and then come back up on the glove. And then I have, it's called a leash. And the leash gets wrapped around the excess around my pinky finger and my ring finger, and that's actually where the term wrapped around your little finger comes from. It's actually a falconry term. There's a lot of falconry. Hoodwinked is also a falconry term, and as I think of more, I'll tell you, but it's I'll use a lot of falconry terms. I am a falconer, so yeah, it's pretty cool. All right, so I'm going to unhood her.
What again was the species?
This is a Harris's hawk. So Harris's hawks, they're the only bird of prey we have at the Iowa Raptor Project that are not native to Iowa. You actually find them down in Arizona, New Mexico, Texas. And so they live out in the desert. They hunt jackrabbits, rabbits, ground squirrels. Superior here, she is a female Harris's hawk. So she, the females are much larger than the males, and she's going to fly a little bit, but she's okay. She's still in training, so she's going to be a year old in about a week and a half. So she's still in training. We're actually training her to do some free flight education programs where you can go out to Wilson's Orchard. I don't know if any of you guys have been there, and we would like the birds to be flying, over your head. So as you can tell, she has quite a bit of training left to do before we release her, but she'll be released, into the wild, and she'll follow us for tidbits of meat, basically. So it's like a food reward in training. So in the wild, these guys I think are really cool because they are called the wolf pack of the sky. So why do you think they'd be called that, the wolf pack of the sky?
Because they work together.
Yeah, work as a group. It's unique to them. They don't know any other bird of prey that actually works as a group. So they're in groups of about 3 to 7. And Superior here, she's about 3 pounds. The males are actually about 1.5 pounds. The males are much smaller than the females. And so they're taking down a jackrabbit that could be about 8 pounds. So they definitely need to work as a team to take down something that big. So there's an alpha male and alpha female. The biggest group is in Tucson, Arizona, and I've actually seen these guys in the wild, and they will sit, I've seen them in 110-degree heat sitting on top of a cactus in broad sunlight. So they're really good with heat. Because they work as a group and they work socially, they make really, for falconry, they work really well with people, and they kind of view you more, as their hunting partner in working together with them. So they're just excellent birds for falconry. They discovered that Harris's hawks hunted as a group in 1970. And so since then they've done a lot of different studies on, okay, how did they do this? Why did they do this? One of the challenges they face in the wild is electrocution, because they perch together many times. Maybe they do this thing, the young ones do a thing called backstanding. Because they're together, they're more likely to be electrocuted. So retrofitting power lines, retrofitting these lines so that they aren't, is huge for them. There's always challenges that birds face. But in Arizona, that's one of them, since they are in a group. So they hunted in a group in 3 different ways. First way is called the surprise pounce. And so they all kind of locate a rabbit, and they'll all just kind of circle it and converge and grab onto the rabbit together and apprehend their prey. The next way is called the flush and ambush. So one bird will go into the brush, they'll see a rabbit, and it'll flush it out, and the rest of them will be perched around that bush, and then they'll all converge and grab their prey that way. The last way, which is my favorite way, and I love this way, is it's called the relay attack. And here you go, girl. Yeah, she's ready to take a perch maybe on one of the lamps. So the relay attack is when, this is for longer pursuits through the desert. One will start chasing, and then it'll get tired, it'll peel away, and then the next one will come right behind it, and it'll start chasing the rabbit, and then they'll catch it and tire that rabbit out. So, yeah. What?
How did this bird come to you?
Yeah, so Superior is captive bred for education. So there's lots of breeders out there for falconry and also for education. Because we want to do free flight programs with her, we tried doing free flight training with some of our rehab. We have a lot of rehab birds out there that have injuries that can't be released into the wild. But they can't, they cannot fly. It's not good for them to try to fly like that. We tried with one of our red tails. So yeah, she's captive for education. So she came from, let's see, Eastern Washington. So we got her about 20 weeks old, and yeah, she's still in training, and right now we are really cracking down on the training and getting her to be free flowing out there. So yeah, questions?
Just why can't she go in the wild?
She can't be released in the wild because she's captive bred, so legally we aren't allowed to release her. And then also she's imprinted, so she's seeing people from a really young age. That's a lot of the birds we have at the IRP, they're imprinted, so someone has taken them from a chick and they started feeding them, and then they kind of think they're human, and they have a lot different behavior, and so they aren't able to be released. So she's also imprinted, but it's not a big deal because she's captive bred. So yeah, any other questions? Right here.
We used to spend some time in Tucson in the winter and had bird feeders out in the backyard, and there was a Harris hawk close by who used to eat our birds.
Oh, wait, did you live in Arizona?
Yeah.
Oh.
In the winter,
There you go. So a lot of people, they'll say, oh my gosh, like in Iowa, there's a Cooper's hawk and red-tailed hawks that will be hunting, these songbirds that are around the bird feeders. And what I like to say is that's good because they need to eat too. And they do hunt, so trying to deter, they're just doing what they need to do to survive, and they are really specially designed to to survive. And Harris's hawks, they're way different than a falcon as far as hunting. You know, they can go in very short, fast speeds and maneuver, you know, through brush, through a cactus super quickly. So they're just amazing. They also have these really long legs. You look at through that brush and grab their prey. So yeah. Birds of prey, they have 3 sharp things about them. So they have sharp beaks, they have really sharp eyesight. Okay, girl. They have sharp eyesight, and they have sharp talons. So they use this beak and their talons really like a fork and a knife to really pick apart their prey. They're not just going to take any chunk of meat. They like to pluck it, you know, and then they're going to go after the meat that they want. So oftentimes when I'm feeding the birds, you know, they really like that red meat, so the heart and the lungs, they like that, those little tidbits there. I know it's gruesome, but they're birds of prey, so.
Do you have any other birds that she is around?
Yeah, so it's important, like for Harris's hawks, you need to have another Harris's hawk with them, because they're social. So we have Walter, who's back at the IRP. He's much smaller than her, but he's a male Harris's hawk, and she's housed with him. So she'll be flying with him too. So I'm gonna go ahead and hood her up again, but I will have, any other questions about the Harris's hawk?
Would we be able to breed them since you got a pair?
We would need to get some, I think, permits for that. I'm not sure if we can breed them at the IRP. I think we do more research and education, but that's a good question. I'll have to ask. That would be kind of cool.
So how long do you keep them?
So she's going to be kept for life. So Harris's hawk in the wild, they'll live maybe 15 years. But in captivity, I know Harris's hawks that have been like 25 years old. You know, I have a lot of falconry friends, and so a lot of them hunt with Harris's hawks. So yeah, I've seen them, you know, all the way up to 25. Yeah. Yeah. And she'll get to fly, and it's really good enrichment for these birds. And they're in their enclosure all the time, so it's good for them to get out, like, see new places, and it's a good training for them too. So, all right, I'm gonna put Superior away, and we're gonna get Addie is gonna be presenting the next bird, so I'll let her kind of get ready for that. The next one is a little more well behaved. Yeah, it does. So it's, I oftentimes with a heavier bird, I'll put my elbow kind of against my hip like this, and when they bait like this, you definitely build a lot more muscle in one arm than the other. Oh, right here.
Alright, well, my name is Addie. So I volunteer at the Raptor Center, or the Raptor Project, as Holly said. So this is Omaha. He is an American Kestrel. He has been at the Raptor Center, Holly, do you know how long? 2017, so he's about 5 years old, that's when he was born. So yeah, so American Kestrels, they are the smallest and the most common falcon in North America. So, sorry, let me take a second. It's my first time doing this. So he's male. And so the difference between females and males, American Kestrels are sexually dimorphic, which means that females differ from males in appearance and size. So females are about 10% larger in size. And you can see right here, he's got blue-gray wings. And females have more red wings all around. So yeah, sorry. But yeah, so they are primarily sit and wait predators. So when they hunt, they like to sit on perches and kind of conserve their energy while they scan the ground for prey. So what they like to eat, they usually eat large insects like grasshoppers or even dragonflies, beetles, things like that, and also small rodents like mice or voles. I find really interesting they can see ultraviolet light, so they can see urine trails from voles, and so they can track them, which I find really cool. So the habitats they like to live and hunt in, they like semi-open habitats like meadows or farmland, so that they can scan the ground and not have any interruptions or barriers or anything. And then for nesting, so their secondary nest they like cavity nests from other birds like woodpeckers or sometimes even squirrel nests. So they seek out a nest. So males seek out a nest and bring the female, and the female gets to choose the mate. So they do that, and they breed around May during that time. So yeah, I find it really cool that the females get to choose. Yeah, it's funny. So yeah, what else? What else? Sorry, I'm blanking. Their eye spots. So I find this really cool. You can see back here. He's looking at me funny. So back here, he's got two kind of black spots. Those are called ocelli, which are like false eyes. So that kind of wards off other predators, thinking that he's like looking at them. So yeah, that's really cool because they can be preyed on by bigger falcons or hawks like the red-tailed hawk, which is in Iowa, or other things like that. Does anybody have any other questions about them? Sorry. What else, Holly?
If you had a question back here, go ahead.
Yeah.
Where, do they live all over this state?
Oh yeah, sorry, that's a big thing that I missed. Yeah. So they live all across North America. There are 17 subspecies actually, and they can even range down all the way down to South America and like Argentina. So they'll go up all the way to Alaska to breed when it's nice out, but then the ones that live in Alaska or northern Canada, they'll migrate down south for winter. So, yep, they are. I find it very interesting. They all have a lot of individual variation with migration. So some don't migrate. Some migrate like very far, like down to Mexico, or some stay right where they are. So, yep. And they follow their prey. So if their prey starts to lessen, then they'll follow and go south. So, yeah. But oh yeah.
When did you get this bird?
He had a broken wing, so he wasn't able, and that is a threat. Getting hit by cars or human intervention is a threat to American kestrels. He got hit by a car, broke his wing, so he's not able to be released back into the wild because he wouldn't be able to hunt. So, yep, they thrive in Iowa because of the vast farmland that we have, and we do have like good trees for them to nest in too. So, but yeah, they're very hardy because they have a wide range of diets, like because they can eat a lot of things. And so yeah, they do well in a lot of places because they're very adaptable. Yeah. Their nesting habits? Oh yeah, okay. Nesting habits. So they, like I said, they'll even evict other birds out of their nests. I think that's really funny. They'll evict birds, but their nesting habits, so the male will scope out a nest, make sure it's up to par, and then they'll bring the female to it, so it's kind of like a hollow, so they don't make the nest, they don't build it. So it's kind of in like a dead tree is usually, or one thing that's really good for conservation for American kestrels is nest boxes. So yeah, kestrel boxes, which Holly has helped put up some, which I think is really awesome. Yeah, so nest boxes, so putting nest boxes in proper placement can really help bring more kestrels to that area if there weren't previous like good places to nest. So yeah. Yeah, so the male has these blue-gray wings, and each individual tends to be very different, which I find really cool. But females are more, so you see this red color that he has, females are more of that red color all around. So yeah, and then females have more of that black like patterning on them. So yeah. But other than that, the females are just larger, about like 5 ounces usually, 5.8 ounces. Yep.
It's pretty rare for birds of prey for the female to look different than the males. The females have different, their spots can really vary between individual little spots on them. The little spots.
Yeah, you see the spots right here?
The
spots on him are the patterns. So even with ones in the same sex, they can look pretty different, but that same like main colors stay the same.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that they're gorgeous.
Yeah, and quickly I want to talk about nesting. So they have in most of their nests, whether it be in a nesting box or in a tree cavity, they have, it's called a dermestid beetle. And this beetle actually eats the carcasses. I don't know if you would explain more about that, but this is called Symbiosis Mutualism. So it's when 2 different species like help each other. So they don't harm these beetles. The beetles just kind of clean up the nest, after the chicks and after the little carcasses. Yeah. And it's very cool. I think if it was up to me, I would love to do research on raptor nests and what kind of critters are in there and what kind of, what's in their nests. So. Yeah, because they both mutually benefit because the beetles clean up the nest and keep it clean so that the likelihood of like disease or parasites go down from that. And this is a little gross, but I did learn this. The juveniles, they poop on the wall of the nest so that they don't get in it. And their poop is also high in ammonia, so it keeps it relatively sterile. Not sterile isn't the right word, but not clean, like not as dirty. So it's amazing they just know how to do that, just like out of the nest so that their little nest area is clean. So so very cool. Yeah. And the females, touching on like younglings, the females do most of the raising of the young. They incubate the eggs. The male provides food during that time. And then after like about 30 days, the eggs start to hatch and the female helps them out of it and keeps them warm. And then after a little time, once they have more feathers and can kind of stay more warm on their own, the females will go out and hunt more and then just come back at night. So yeah. Yeah, and that's also the reason why most female birds and birds of prey are larger than the males, because the females, they need to produce eggs and they need to be able to incubate the eggs and defend the nest somewhat. So yeah, that's also the reason with birds of prey, if you see a larger one, and a smaller, it's usually the female that's going to be larger than the male. So that's really a trend throughout. Yeah, and
that's super cool. And and then another little just small fact I think is really cute. You can audibly hear like little peeps out of the eggs like the day before they hatch, which is super cute. And the progression of how they grow is really interesting to me too. They grow really fast and they become independent pretty fast too. So about 30 days after they hatch, they start to what's called fledge. So they leave the nest and start to fly, and they come back to the nest at night to sleep. And then after a period of time, they're good to go. They know how to hunt, and then they're off. So yeah.
Yeah, it's amazing how quickly they hatch. They grow their feathers, and they have to fledge up because the nest, it's not the safest place to be because any kind of predator can just go into the nest and get you. Yep. So with birds, it's amazing the quickness of them hatching from egg, having no feathers at all, maybe a little down, and then growing in all of their feathers and being able to fledge. And the parents do take care of them, for a little bit.
For a small period of time.
Yeah, and that's, I think sometimes when they get into trouble with, sometimes the babies are on the ground for a little bit, the parents are feeding them maybe once a day. And then some people think they're abandoned, they'll take them, and then that's when they're
Yep. And
protected. So it's always best to just kind of leave them be, or call a rehab if you're not sure.
Yep.
So.
So yeah, the parents help with food for a little bit, and then they're off. And the juveniles closely resemble their adult counterparts. And then they do molt, so they shed all their feathers and get new ones. So they do that every year. So
You had a question back here.
gradually.
Yeah.
We're looking at a handler now.
Yeah.
Could you define for us what you think is actually imperative for somebody to be a handler, a good handler?
Yeah, so I do like the volunteer coordination, everything. So when I onboard a volunteer to be at the Iowa Raptor Park, so Addie's been through a lot of training already, but first they come in and they're going to be a cleaner, so they're going to be mopping the floors and they're going to be, filling the bird blind for us, and so they'll do that until another position opens up to then do raptor care. So Addie actually just kind of got into the raptor care part.
About like late February.
Yeah. And a position opened up for her on Mondays. And so after, if they're going to go into the enclosures with the birds, I take them through a raptor handling training. And so it's about 2 hours, and they can always come in, a second time as well if they're not quite comfortable with it. And I take them through and I teach them how to handle a bird of prey on the glove. So she's been through that training.
Yep.
I start off with a coffee
birds,
cup and I fill it up all the way to the brim. And I have them walk around the room, and that's how steady your hand needs to be if you have a coffee cup that's all the way to the brim when you have a bird of prey on the glove, because they need to have a good perch.
Yeah, because
it's comfortable. So it's kind of a progression of being trained, many trainings. So yeah, that's kind of how it works. Yeah, it did different. Each bird of prey they have a different personality. So he's
usually loud. So.
I'm surprised he hasn't vocalized yet, because he will do a very high-pitched vocalization. But some of them, like you saw Superior, she's baiting off the glove. She's a little crazier. Eventually, she's going to be just like him, just sitting there, nicely. But sometimes it depends on the day. That's why I don't guarantee with programs a bird that's going to be coming out, because sometimes they're just not having a good day. I go in their enclosure, they don't, they're just acting kind of crazy, so I don't want to bring them. They have their good and bad days. They all have their personalities too. Yeah. So that's kind of why he's kind of sitting really nicely right now. He's having a good day.
He can get really feisty sometimes too. So.
I was thinking of a house that my bedroom was up on the 2nd floor, and the window that looked out on the roof over the back porch. And there was about that much room between the sill and the back porch.
Yeah.
I kept waking up in the morning with some creature. There was a red tail.
Oh no.
Very curious about the fact that there was something living behind that screen.
Oh no.
And he would come visit.
Yeah.
Is there a curiosity factor about
Yes.
these guys?
Totally. That reminds me of, we have 2 young red tails that are here right now. And they're so playful and curious. They'll take rocks and sticks and they'll kind of toss them around. But I bet you were seeing like a young, we call it passage red tail. They're in their first year of life.
Yeah.
So they're way more curious. Yeah, and they're just like checking out everything. So that's probably a young red tail.
They actually got excited.
Yeah. They're really fun when they're young. Yeah, it's like every morning. Yes. What's your question?
Do they ever show a preference for handlers?
They do. It's the more you work with them, once they get used to you, they definitely prefer. So some of them, they'll get on anyone's glove, but there's definitely some, they have different personalities. So they know you, they know your voice, they know how you look. So they're a bird of prey. At the end of the day, they're a wild animal, so they're not going to be like a dog or a cat. But so I always try to treat them with reverence because once I think I figured them out and they're predictable, they'll do something that I didn't expect. So yeah, I always kind of keep that in mind when working with them. But they are very smart and they can definitely recognize you, and they know you, and they do kind of prefer certain people. When I'm training, I always tell people don't do these jerky movements because they don't like that. They like really like a lot of confidence and smooth movements and being able to pick them up. So then they're going to be more confident with you. So, okay, I'm going to have Addie go ahead and put, we have one more bird that Annika's going to present. That I'll show you guys.
I'm curious, you said you got hit by a car.
Yeah, it's got a broken
So
wing.
why did you come by? Did the person see that they hit it?
Yeah. You know, I'm not sure how they like picked him up, but the Rare group in Iowa City, they do rehab. So Iowa Raptor Parties, we don't do rehab. We switched to doing a lot more research than rehab back in 2016. But they probably rehabbed and then they called the IRP once he was okay, but they knew he was going to be released, and then he came to us. So, yeah, hit by a car. I'm not really sure how it all happened. But we hope if people hit a bird, they pick it up and try to save it. It's, I know it's in Iowa City. I've been there before. I don't know the exact address, but it's not too far from here. Okay, so I'll have
Thank you.
goodbye to Omaha, who's a great Raptor ambassador.
I have a comment.
Yeah.
A lot of people.
No, you're good.
They can get on their computers and look for Raptor Resource Project.
Mm-hmm.
And see a lot of these things happening online and nesting and
Yep.
so on. I find that fascinating.
Yeah.
These people might want to know how to do that.
Oh, yeah,
So to build, so Kestrel, we actually have another, she's bringing out, I'm going to help Addie turn back real quick.
Okay. I just.
No problem. You got it. Yeah, let's put him back. It's okay.
Easier to test it up. Or test it.
Okay, cool. Can you guys hear me? So this is Fenna. She's a barn owl, so that is an endangered species in Iowa. So you can find barn owls, I think you can find them anywhere in the world but Antarctica. But here in Iowa, they are endangered. So I think in America, they do the best on the West Coast. Fenna came to us in 2019. She came from the World Bird Sanctuary, right? So she was purchased for educational purposes and things like that. We think Fenna is actually a boy because at night he or she has been calling and a wild barn owl has been coming to visit. So very exciting because that's an uncommon animal. And Fenna made a wild friend, so. There are also cavity nesters like the Kestrel we just had out. Obviously, they're going to need a much bigger hole, but you can put nest boxes up for these birds just like the Kestrels. What else? They eat mice, things like that, like regular raptors. They have the best hearing of any of the owls, I think, and the most silent flight of any of the owls as well. So their wings, if you look under them, or their feathers, I guess, if you look under them at a microscope, or look at them under a microscope, sorry, they're like serrated, and I think that just helps like the wind pass through differently, so it's silent. What else about Fenna? And boy and girl barn owls, so usually the males, I keep touching that, usually the males will have a wider chest. That's another, now that Fenna has called out, now like that we see that, we're like, oh, like maybe Fenna is a boy because his chest is pretty bare. Owls also have, most owls have, you know, like an odd shaped face, but Fenna's is much more defined just to help her hunt. Her eyes aren't as big as other owls, so it helps her hear better. You guys have questions? Yeah.
How far around can they turn their head?
I think the farthest, so not this, I don't know about this species, but the farthest any owl can go is 270 degrees, I think. So pretty much almost all the way around. I don't know how far, do you know how far Fenna?
Not all the way around, but owls, Fenna has a little smaller eyes, but they're not able to move the eyes within their eye sockets. Like you and I can look side to side and move our heads. Yeah. Owls can't do that, so that's why they're always just moving their heads like this. And I know it's not completely all the way around, but definitely almost. And much more vertebrae. I'm just gonna show you guys right there, but they have a lot more vertebrae, so that they're able to do that. They're able to like turn their heads all the way around. So. Barn owls, they are endangered in Iowa. They discovered this in 2004. So Fenna comes from a breeding project, so they tried to release a lot of more barn owls into Iowa because of this. And this is because a lot of farmers have switched from hay crops where they can forage. Their favorite food is bolls, to row crops. And so that's a lot harder for them to forage. One of the things you'd love to study is how many mice are in the cornfields, right now, because that's really big for birds of prey. It's really important for those farmers to keep that hedgerow, to keep those line of trees between their the cornfields, because it just gives these birds, a place that they can live. So also modern day barns used to be open. So this is where they will roost and nest, is in these open barns. A lot of modern barns now are closed. So it just, all of that combined makes it harder for barn owls to live. So they released a lot of them, but it was sadly unsuccessful because great horned owls love to prey upon these guys. So if you're a smaller bird, you're always looking for these bigger birds. We have 2 great horned owls at the IRP, but they are just an apex predator. Even eagles, bald eagles will stay away from great horned owls. So it's a tough life, but there are, in Hawkeye Wildlife Management area, there's quite a few barn owl nest boxes that are being monitored. Hopefully some will move in. So we're constantly trying to figure out ways that we can get more barn owls back. I actually had a friend say he was at his parents' house and he saw some barn owls, and he showed a picture to me, and they were actually in these rafters. It was an open barn, and so I was like, well, that's perfect. So it's exciting that we've had a wild barn owl come in, a female to Fenna, but it's also sad because I wish, she'd find a real mate, But they're just amazing. They're probably my favorite owl. Just because their hearing is, their ears are asymmetrical, and so their face really allows them to listen. They can memorize the sound of their prey underneath vegetation. They don't even have to see it. They can hunt in almost pitch black, and that face really allows those sounds to go into those ears at different times so they can locate that prey, and they'd be able to grab it in pitch black. So they're just amazing animals in that way. So they also have long legs so they can really punch through that brush. They don't do well with cold, they don't do well with snow cover, so they're partially migratory. So they will migrate if it gets too cold, but they have these big round heads, so they lose a lot of heat from these heads, and so they'll get cold. A lot of them will die because they're too cold in the winter. So it's a tough life, but we hope to help them out. They also, not throwing your trash like out of the car window or something, that attracts a lot of their favorite food next to roadways, and then they get hit by cars. That's one of the main things, is to be hit by cars. And one of the future studies they'd like to do is rodent control with barn owls. They have a farm out, I think it's in Utah, but they have a bunch of barn owls there. So they're only endangered in Iowa. I think in a couple other states too, but they'll hunt like 6-7 mice a night, rodents, so that's pretty cool. They really keep the population down. So, what's your question?
We used to live on the east side of town, and there were a lot of barred owls.
Barred, yes.
Yeah, over there. And
yeah.
We would frequently hear them calling back and forth.
Yeah.
Just neatly calling back and forth.
Mm-hmm.
One night we were awakened by, I don't know how many were back there in our backyard, and they were having a party. They were making more racket than I'd ever knew them capable of.
Oh man.
What's the deal with that?
They could have seen a threat. Maybe a great horned owl came by and was scaring them. It could be, if it was in the springtime, maybe it was a family group and the chicks had just fledged, so they're defending the chicks. It could be a number of different things, but the barred owl is easy to tell. Like at nighttime, if you go out and you hear a hoot, it sounds like, who cooks for you? So it's like, hoo, 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 hoo. And I have a couple around my neighborhood that I hear almost every night. And so, but they could be making a racket like that for a number. Maybe they saw a coyote. So, they make a lot of noise. That also, tells everyone else in the area that there's a threat there. So who knows what it could have been. But barred owls, we have one barred owl at the IRP. So.
Are you involved with the Raptor Resource Project? I can get that on my computer.
Oh.
And watch them, the nests. Like
yes.
Eagles.
Yeah, so where I
watch them.
Cornell Lab of Ornithology, they have a bunch of live bird like nest cams, and I love watching them. So you can go online and actually watch live, like osprey nest, bald eagle nest. There's even heron nests. But that's where I get, where I do my reading and like research is from the Cornell Lab of Ornithology, because that has really accurate information, up-to-date studies on the species and what's been studying, being done. Okay.
Can you imitate the sound of a barn owl?
I can do a barn owl very well, but not a barn owl. I have not heard him make a vocalization. Ryan, the director, he had to put some new anklets on her, and he made a huge, like a screech, like a scream. But I haven't heard it, so it's very rare for him to make any vocalization. Yeah. It'll make a screech. Yeah, it's very loud. Oh, so Fenna, when the wild female was coming around the enclosure, Fenna was making this sound that sounded like a car alarm. And that's why we were like, okay, what's that sound? We were there in the evening time, and we found out it was a female coming by. So definitely Fenna can make very loud noises. So that's right now. Yeah. Hey, a couple more questions.
I don't know whether it was a barred owl or a barn owl, but we had a pair that were in our neighborhood for about several days.
Mm-hmm.
And they would sit in my tree, and I would hear them with their young, trying to teach them how to call.
Yeah.
It was fun.
Calling back and forth.
You could tell that they were young ones because they could not make the controlled sound.
Yeah, oftentimes the young you'll hear make food begging calls, and they're going to sound a little different, and they grow out of that. So maybe you heard the young has just fledged, so the parents are kind of taking care of them as they're out of the nest, and then they're making these food begging calls for the parents. So you could have been hearing that. So any more questions?
Do you have to raise mice to feed them?
We don't. So we order all the quail. We have quail, mice, rats, and day-old chicks. And so we order all of them online except for the day-old chicks. We go up to Red, Iowa, and get them there. So it's really nice they're donating. Yes. Yeah.
Baby chickens.
Yeah, they're the
Like
cockerels.
chicks,
Yeah. So it's really nice. They donate to us. And they have all the male chickens. Many people, they'll go to Tyson's and they want more chickens than roosters. So unfortunately, they have to put a lot of these little day-old roosters down. But we get to put them to use. We get to feed them to the birds. So at least they're getting put, to use, and now they're not just being thrown away. So.
Will they eat them if they're dead?
They will. Yeah, we don't feed any of our birds live animals. They're pretty used to getting like dead animals, and they'll just grab them and they'll still pluck them and everything. So yeah, we don't feed any live animals, but we order most online and comes in a nice box. Yeah.
I was sitting there reading one day and something hit my window and it was about that tall.
That's huge.
Bear.
Ooh.
No feathers, no nothing. But I thought, what are you? But it hit the window and fell down and it was stunned.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to touch it because it was bare. I didn't know what problem.
Yeah, it's birds, they do fly into windows. If you put little stickers on your windows, that makes it less reflective for them, because then they think, oh, okay, that's a window, I'm not going to fly into it. But I don't know what that could have been. It was bare. It makes me think maybe like a turkey vulture, they have like a bare head, but it should have had all its feathers. It was all, yeah, that is, maybe it was it might have been a sick bird, yeah. Birds will molt in the late summer. So, dropping your feathers and growing in new ones every year, that takes a lot of energy from the bird. So they're not going to do it while they're brooding, while they're laying on eggs, while they're raising their chicks. They're not going to do it during the fall migration, or dead of winter when it's super cold and so they're going to do it during a warm time of year, when they have plenty of food, they're going to be molting and growing in new feathers. The feathers are awesome. They have, I'll quickly say, I know we're running out of time, but they have this contour feathers are all over the body. And then on their wings, they have primary feathers. These are primary flight feathers. It's going to help them lift. Fenna has a serrated edge, so when the primary feathers go through the air separates and so it doesn't make a noise. Then they have secondary feathers, so these are right above the primary feathers. And then they have coverts, which are to cover, and they cover these important flight feathers from getting sun damage. And so when they molt, they really have to be strategic about what feathers. They don't molt them all at the same time. It's one feather at a time, really, in the span of a couple months that they're molting. But they do, every bird, sometimes their plumage will change if they're a young bird, 1 year old to the next year. Even with bald eagles, it takes them 5 years to get to that bald eagle look with the white head and everything. But sometimes it just takes them a year. But then after that, it's called a definitive plumage, and every year they're going to look the same and they're good. But every bird molts every single year. They lose all their feathers and grow in new ones. But they really do that, during that later part of the summer when they're not nesting or doing any of that high energy stuff. They're growing in their feathers, so. Okay, I think that is it. Thank you guys for, hopefully you learned something new about birds of prey, and really glad to have these guys out.